Kyle. Just $50. Finn's out of milk. I'll pay you back later. Mira Callahan hurriedly typed the message on her cracked screen phone, her fingers trembling under the dim yellow light of the tiny apartment. She was curled up on a worn-out sofa, where the cracks on the wall looked like scars telling the story of long, struggling months. Finn, her not-yet-2-year-old son, slept in an old crib beside her, his steady breathing the only rhythm keeping Mira awake. The last can of formula was empty. The electricity and water bills were piling up on the kitchen counter, and her bank account held only a few spare coins. The message was sent, and Mira thought she had texted Kyle, her brother, the only person left she could still turn to. But just seconds later, the screen lit up with a notification that made her heart sink. Number not saved in contacts. Mira froze, as if she had just thrown a stone into a deep canyon and heard no echo in return. She had sent the message to the wrong number, a strange number, no name, no memory. She quickly typed an apology. Sorry, wrong number. But before she could put the phone down, a reply appeared short, sharp, like lightning. It's okay. I'm Grayson. If Finn needs milk, I can help with $50. Do you need anything else? Mira frowned, her eyes scanning the message as if she were trying to decipher a dangerous riddle. Grayson, who would willingly help a stranger just because of a wrong text? She thought about the times she'd been deceived in the past. Her ex, with honeyed promises, had left her and Finn in the dark. Mira's pride, like a small but unyielding flame, flared up. She typed back, each letter firm with resolve. Thank you, but I don't take money from strangers. I'll figure it out myself. The reply came as swiftly as a gust of wind. I understand, but Finn shouldn't have to wait. I'll send $50, no strings attached. You decide whether to accept it. Mira looked over at Finn, his soft curls glowing faintly under the dim light. Her eyes blurred not from sadness, but from the exhaustion of a single mother who had been fighting for too long. She didn't respond right away, but her heart, like a compass knocked off course, wavered between suspicion and hope. The next morning, a bank notification nearly made Mira drop her phone. Not $50, but $5,000 had been transferred from an account under the name Grayson Maddox. She stood frozen, her breath caught in her chest. $5,000 enough to pay rent, buy formula, and even a new winter coat for Finn. But why? Who was this man? And what was his motive? The doorbell rang. Pulling Mira out of her thoughts, a delivery man dropped off 4 large boxes filled with children's clothes, toys, and expensive formula she had only dared to glance at through the grocery store window. Inside one of the boxes, she found a handwritten letter, the pen strokes firm, but carrying a warmth of sincerity. Finn deserves more. I hope this helps your family. Grayson. Mira sat down on the floor, the letter trembling in her hand. She opened her laptop and typed Grayson Maddox into the search bar. The results surged like a wave. Grayson Maddox, CEO of Helix Core Industries, a leading biotech corporation. Articles described him as a private man, a widower, with significant charitable contributions, but always avoiding the spotlight. None of them explained why someone like him would care about her, a struggling single mother barely getting by. She called the number back, her voice cold. Mr. Maddox, I appreciate your kindness, but I can't accept $5,000 or these boxes. I don't know you, and I don't want to owe anyone. Grayson's voice on the other end was deep and calm, like a still lake. I don't expect anything in return, Miss Callahan. But I looked up your number after the wrong message. I know you used to work as an auditor and have a background in biology. Helix Core needs someone like you. Come meet me, and we can talk about a job. Mira was stunned, her heart fluttering like a trapped bird. How do you know my name? And why should I trust you? I don't make a habit of helping strangers without checking. Grayson admitted, your records show you're honest, and I need someone who isn't tied to existing company networks. Come to Helix Core. If you're not interested, I'll return the money and the items. Mira stayed silent, her mind spinning. She remembered the days when she worked at an auditing firm, before Finn was born and life turned upside down. Her background in biology, just a college degree, had once been her pride. But now, she was just a single mom surviving on welfare and odd jobs. Grayson's invitation felt like a door cracked open in the middle of a storm, tempting, yet suspicious. That night, Mira lay beside Finn, listening to his steady breathing. She opened a drawer and took out a letter from her late sister. The ink faded, but the words still sharp in her memory. Find the light in the darkness. Mira, don't be afraid to move forward. Her sister, the one who had taught her about pride and resilience, was gone too soon, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. Mira put on the necklace that had once belonged to her sister, a keepsake, and whispered to herself, I have to try. For Finn. The next morning, she put on the only wrinkle-free blouse she had, left Finn with a sitter, and headed to Helix Corps headquarters. The building towered above her, its glass panels gleaming like mirrors, making her feel small, like a grain of sand before the ocean. Dana Whitlow, Grayson's chief of staff, greeted her with a professional but distant smile. Miss Callahan, welcome to Helix Corps. Mr. Maddox is expecting you. Mira stepped into Grayson's office, where sunlight poured in through the large windows. Grayson stood up tall, but not imposing his eyes, carrying a sorrow that was hard to define. Thank you for coming, he said. I'd like you to work temporarily in the audit department. We're having some issues, and I need an objective set of eyes. Mira frowned. Why me? You only know me from a wrong text. Grayson gave a faint smile, his gaze steady like a lighthouse through fog. Sometimes, a wrong message leads to the right thing. I trust my instincts, and they tell me you're the person I need. He led her to a nursery prepared specifically for Finn, with a small bed, toys, and a colorful mural on the wall. If you agree to work here, Finn will be cared for in this room, Grayson said. You won't have to worry about him. Mira looked around the room, her heart swelling like a rising tide. She thought of Finn, of the nights she held him, and cried, because she couldn't afford formula. I'll do it, she said, her voice firm. But let's be clear. I'm doing this because I need the job, not out of gratitude. Grayson nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. That's all I ask. Mira began the job, working in a small office surrounded by computer screens filled with numbers and reports. She quickly noticed irregularities. A company named Trinox Solutions LLC kept appearing in major transactions, but there were no contracts or supporting documents. Each figure, like a puzzle piece in a mysterious picture, led her deeper into a risky financial maze. In a private meeting, Grayson handed her a USB drive, his voice low. I suspect Vincent Holloway, our CFO, but I need solid proof. Can you help me? Mira held the USB, feeling like she was gripping a ticking time bomb. She remembered her auditing days, when she had uncovered minor fraud in past companies. But this time, she was facing something much bigger. I'll try, she said, her eyes steady. Grayson granted her full access to the entire system, explaining that it was a direct order from him, bypassing the IT department. Though skeptical, Mira began digging into the data. She discovered that the same device had been used to approve transactions from multiple accounts, a sophisticated loophole that sent chills down her spine. Every number on the screen, like a whisper from the shadows, pulled her into a battle she never thought she'd have to fight. Mira Callahan sat in the small office at Helix Corps, the glow from her computer screen casting shadows across her face like a map leading into a maze with no way out. The numbers moved quietly across the display like waves, but beneath them ran a dangerous undertow. The USB Grayson Maddox had handed her rested in her palm, small, but heavy like a secret, capable of bringing down an empire. She knew she was stepping into a war without bullets, where every decision was a chess piece on a board of truth and deception. The first trace. Mira began analyzing the data from the USB, dissecting every line of code and transaction with the precision of a biologist examining cells under a microscope. Her biology background, long forgotten, now became a sharp tool. She read the numbers like strands of DNA, each transaction a genetic sequence, and somewhere in there, a mutation was hiding. Trinox Solutions LLC, the shell company she had discovered, appeared in a series of high-value transactions, but with no contracts or invoices. Stranger still, all of these transactions had been approved from the same device, a subtle trick to mask the money trail. She took careful notes, creating a password-protected folder on her computer labeled Proof. Each piece of evidence, like a small stone, was stacked to build a wall against the lies. But that wall also marked a dangerous line, separating her from the peaceful life she once dreamed of for Finn. One afternoon, Grayson appeared at her office door, calm on the surface, but his eyes carried a clear trace of worry. "What have you found?" he asked, his voice low like an instrumental score without lyrics. Mira turned the screen toward him and pointed to a string of transactions. Trinox doesn't exist on paper, but the money funneled through it adds up to millions. Someone is skirting the system, and they're doing it well. Grayson nodded but said nothing at first. He sat in the chair across from her, the late afternoon sunlight cutting across his face and revealing lines etched by past wounds. "I've been betrayed before," he said, like recounting a long-buried story. "A trusted financial advisor embezzled millions from my last company. I didn't just lose money. I lost trust. That's why I chose you, Mira. You're not part of the power circles here." Mira looked at him, feeling the wall of suspicion between them start to thin. She thought of Finn, of the nights she held him tight and wondered if she could shield him from the world's cruelty. "I've been betrayed too," she said, softly but firmly. "The man I loved left me and Finn without a word. I don't want Finn to grow up in a world full of lies." Grayson nodded again, his eyes like a lighthouse guiding her through the storm. "We have a common goal, Mira, but Vincent Holloway isn't someone you take lightly. He's a master manipulator." The darkness of Vincent Holloway, Helix Corps' CFO, was a man with a smile sharp as a blade and eyes cold as ice. He moved through the company like a snake, quiet but lethal, always knowing how to earn people's trust. Mira noticed it during a board meeting when Vincent spoke of sustainable growth in a voice as smooth as velvet. But she also caught the glances between two board members, their nods too quick, as if already bought by his sweet promises. Vincent didn't just manipulate the board. He tried to win over Dana Whitlow, Grayson's chief of staff. In an email Dana accidentally exposed while sharing files with Mira, Vincent offered her access to internal logs in exchange for a higher position if she cooperated. Dana, always composed and professional, didn't respond immediately, but Mira noticed hesitation in her eyes. One evening, while Mira stayed late at the office, Dana walked in holding a coffee. "What are you doing with those numbers, Callahan?" Dana asked, voice soft but sharp. Mira hesitated, remembering Grayson's warning. Don't share anything with Dana. But when she looked into Dana's eyes, she saw not hostility, but curiosity. "I'm looking for the truth," Mira answered calmly. "Have you ever wondered why a company as big as Helix Corps has transactions no one can trace?" Dana was silent, then turned to leave. But before stepping out, she said, "Be careful. Vincent doesn't like curious people." The flame from Finn. Every day after work, Mira picked Finn up from Helix Corps' nursery. The boy, with wide eyes and a radiant smile, was the flame warming her heart. One afternoon, Finn grabbed a crayon and scribbled all over Mira's notebook random lines that meant nothing, yet held quiet poetry. Mira looked at the drawing, and in that moment, she saw her entire world. A world where Finn could grow without fear or scarcity. Finn's drawing became a symbol of why she fought. Whenever she felt exhausted, she opened the notebook, looked at those scattered lines, and reminded herself, "I'm not doing this for Grayson or Helix Corps. I'm doing it for Finn." She continued diving into the data, storing evidence in the proof folder with a password only she knew. The snake trap. Grayson and Mira devised a plan to trap Vincent. They created a fake memo, crafted to look like a sensitive internal document containing details of a major transaction with Trinox Solutions. The memo was circulated through the internal system, but only Vincent and a select few had access. Following Grayson's guidance, Mira installed a tracking program to monitor every interaction with the file. To ensure nothing went wrong, Grayson introduced Mira to Rowan Hale, a former FBI investigator turned independent consultant. Rowan, with silver-dyed short hair and eyes sharp as blades, entered the office like a storm. "Grayson told me about you last week," she said confidently. "He suspected Vincent for a long time, but lacked evidence. You're the key." Mira was taken aback. "Why didn't he bring you in earlier?" Rowan smiled. "Grayson's cautious. He needed someone on the inside to validate his suspicions before pulling me in." You did that. Rowan helped Mira encrypt the data, making sure that even if Vincent discovered the trail, he couldn't destroy the evidence. They also set up a secure backup on an off-site server, beyond Helix Core's reach. Every move, like a chess piece on the board, was calculated with precision. Dana's turning point. Tension rose as Vincent began to grow suspicious. He didn't confront Mira directly, but sent an anonymous email from a fake account, warning her, "Don't dig too deep unless you're ready to lose everything." Mira read the message, her heart pounding, but she wasn't afraid. She had already lost everything once her home, her lover, her trust, and now she had only Finn left to protect. She decided to confront Dana. In a private meeting, Mira laid a folder on the table in front of her, pointing to the evidence of Vincent's transactions. "You could side with him," Mira said, her voice calm but sharp. "But do you really want to work for someone who would sell everyone out for money?" Dana looked at the documents, her hand trembling slightly. She remembered Vincent's email, his promises of power and wealth. But she also remembered Mira's eyes, the gaze of a single mother, brave enough to stand for the truth. "I'm not promising to help you," Dana said quietly, "but I won't stand in your way." A place of refuge. As Vincent intensified the pressure, Grayson made a decision to move Mira and Finn to a safe location. "I have a friend in private security," he said, eyes filled with concern. "They'll protect you and Finn." Mira packed quickly, holding Finn close in her arms. The boy, unaware of the danger, simply laughed and reached for her face. In that moment, the world seemed to shrink, just her and Finn, standing against the looming dark. They were moved to a small house in the suburbs, protected by a discreet security team. Grayson stood at the doorway, looking at Mira with an expression that seemed to want to say more, but couldn't. "You're not alone," he said. "I promise." Mira nodded, feeling a small flame begin to stir in her chest. She didn't know if she could fully trust Grayson, but she knew one thing. She wouldn't stop, not for him, but for Finn, and for herself. A new fire in her veins. The house was quiet, far from the noise of the city and the tension of Helix Core. Finn played in the living room with a toy truck, while Mira sat at the kitchen table, files and flash drives spread out before her. Every piece of evidence was a puzzle piece, and the picture was becoming clearer. Vincent wasn't working alone. Someone in the boardroom was helping him cover the tracks. Rowan visited the safe house regularly, working with Mira to build a timeline of events. "The board will need something irrefutable," Rowan said. "Documents, timestamps, digital fingerprints, something they can't ignore or spin." Mira nodded, exhausted but driven. Her hands no longer shook when scrolling through files. Her eyes, once hesitant, were now razor-sharp. She was no longer just a mother trying to survive. She was a whistleblower, a fighter. Dana's message. Late one evening, a secured message arrived from Dana, encrypted and sent through a private channel. It contained access logs, proof that Vincent had entered and altered the accounting database after hours. Alongside the files was a brief note. "I'm not on your side, but I'm not on his either. Use this well." Mira forwarded the files to Rowan, who confirmed their authenticity. "This is it," Rowan said. "We go to the board." Grayson arranged a private meeting with 2 trusted board members, those who hadn't yet fallen under Vincent's influence. The plan was simple: present the evidence in full, force an internal review, and remove Vincent before he could cover his tracks. But Mira knew nothing would be simple from here on. The calm before the storm. On the night before the meeting, Mira sat by Finn's bed, watching him sleep. His tiny chest rose and fell with gentle rhythm. She reached out and brushed a curl from his forehead. "I don't know what's coming, baby," she whispered. "But I promise you this, I'll never stop fighting for the kind of world you deserve." In the other room, her laptop screen showed folders labeled Proof, Backups, and Final. Everything was ready. Everything was riding on what came next. Mira Callahan stood in the small suburban house, where sunlight filtered through the curtains and lit up Finn's sleeping face. The little boy, with his curly hair and rosy cheeks, was the guiding light on the road she had chosen, even if that road was filled with shadows and danger. Vincent Holloway's anonymous email, with its cold threats, still haunted her. "Don't dig too deep unless you're ready to lose everything." But Mira wasn't afraid. She had already lost too much: her home, her trust, her dreams, and now, the only things she couldn't afford to lose were Finn and her own self-respect. First step into the darkness. Back at Helix Core, Mira worked in silence. Each day a quiet battle. The proof folder on her computer was now filled to the brim. Transactions linked to Trinox Solutions LLC, encrypted internal emails, and access logs showing that Vincent had used the same device to authorize numerous illegal transfers. Every figure was a bullet, ready to tear through the wall of lies Vincent had built. Grayson Maddox, with eyes full of worry yet unwavering, met Mira in his office late one night. The neon lights outside Helix Core flickered like lost stars over the city skyline. "Vincent's making a move," Grayson said, his voice a grim warning. "He just submitted a report to the board, accusing me of misusing company funds. If we don't act fast, he'll flip the entire board." Mira looked at Grayson, seeing the pain beneath his firm exterior. She remembered the story he once told about the advisor who had betrayed him, leaving behind scars that never healed. "He'll come after me first," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a fact. Grayson nodded. "He knows you're a threat, but I won't let you fight alone." His words were like a cool breeze calming the storm inside her. Mira thought of Finn, of his crayon drawing, and reminded herself, "I'm not doing this for Grayson. I'm doing this for the truth." An unexpected ally, Donna Whitlow, Grayson's chief of staff, became an unpredictable variable. After her conversation with Mira, Donna started noticing irregularities. One morning, while sorting documents, she accidentally discovered a deleted email in the company's internal trash bin. It was from Vincent, sent to a board member, promising special incentives if they supported him in the upcoming vote. Donna, trained in professionalism, now felt a rising tide of moral reckoning. She found Mira in the employee break room, where Mira was making coffee, her eyes tired but unyielding. "I've been thinking about what you said," Dana began, her voice low but steady. "Vincent tried to buy me. He promised me a seat on the board if I helped cover for him. But I don't want to be part of that game." Mira looked at Dana, her gaze like a mirror, reflecting both skepticism and hope. "Which side are you on?" she asked. Dana gave a faint smile, her first real warmth, the side of the truth. "But you need to move fast. Vincent's rallying the board to take Grayson down." Dinah's words, like a beam of light through the darkness, reminded Mira she wasn't alone. She thought of her late sister, who once said, "Find light in the dark." Dana, just a colleague, was now becoming a beacon on her path. The livestream plan. Grayson, Mira, and Rowan Hale, the former FBI investigator, held a private meeting in a soundproof, glass-walled conference room. Rowan, sharp as ever, opened her laptop and laid out a 38-page dossier compiling all the evidence against Vincent. "This is our ammunition," she said, "but we need a stage to fire it." Mira proposed a bold idea, an internal live stream, only accessible to Helix Core employees and the board of directors. "We need to make the evidence public, but under control so we don't breach confidentiality laws," she said. "If Vincent strikes first, he'll twist the truth." Grayson hesitated, but his eyes lit up as he looked at Mira. "Are you sure about this? It's a dangerous step." Mira nodded, her hand gripping the keepsake necklace from her sister. "I've come too far to stop now, and I believe truth will win." Rowan ensured that the live stream would be hosted on a secure internal channel, with a legal team monitoring for risks. She also forwarded the 38-page report to the state prosecutor's office as a backup plan. "If Vincent retaliates, we'll have the feds behind us," she said, her tone cool but confident. Climax in the boardroom. On the day of the live stream, Mira stood outside Helix Core's main boardroom, her heart pounding like war drums. The room was packed with board members, senior executives, and even a few invited journalists acting as neutral observers. Vincent, in a flawless suit and confident smile, sat in the front row, his eyes like a snake watching its prey. Mira took a deep breath. Her eyes found Grayson, standing in the corner, and Dana, who was managing the live stream controls. She began speaking, her voice slightly shaky, but every word dropped like a stone into a silent lake. "I'm not here to convince you to trust me. I'm simply asking you to look at the data." The large screen behind her displayed Trinox Solutions transactions, Vincent's access logs, and the emails he sent to manipulate board members. Each piece of evidence sliced through Vincent's web of deception like a blade. The board members murmured, some shaking their heads, others staring at Vincent with growing suspicion. Vincent stood abruptly, his voice sharp. "This is a smear campaign. Ms. Callahan is a temporary employee. She has no authority to make these allegations." But before he could continue, Dana stepped forward, holding up a security badge. "Your badge, Vincent," she said, her voice cold. "It's been deactivated since this morning." Grayson stepped up, his eyes ablaze. "We have a federal investigator verifying the evidence." "Vincent, your game is over." For the first time in his career, Vincent lost his composure. He scanned the room for allies but found only cold stares. He collapsed into his chair, his face pale, as if the color had been drained from a once carefully painted portrait. Thanks from strangers. After the live stream, Mira walked out of the boardroom, her legs trembling but her heart light. At the reception desk, the receptionist, who had once only offered polite smiles, handed her a card. Inside, it read, "You are brave. Thank you." A daycare worker, one who often cared for Finn, slipped her a note. "Finn is proud of his mom, and we are too." Mira returned to the little house where Finn was playing with a toy car. She scooped him up, tears rolling down her cheeks. She thought of her sister, of the necklace, and felt perhaps, for the first time in years, that light had returned, even if only a faint beam in the dark. Mira Callahan stepped into the main boardroom at Helix Core, where sunlight from the large glass panels reflected across her face like a mirror of the path she had walked. Just a few months ago, she was a single mother holding Finn in a cramped apartment, struggling with bills and sleepless nights. Now she stood here, as the director of internal audit, preparing to address the board. The keepsake necklace from her sister, shining on her neck, was like a tiny light, reminding her of what her sister once said, "Find light in the darkness." Mira, a new role. After the pivotal livestream, Vincent Holloway was suspended, and the federal investigation quickly confirmed what Mira had exposed. The board members, once divided by Vincent's promises, now looked at Mira with a mix of astonishment and respect. One elderly member with silver hair whispered as she left the boardroom, "You've shamed us, Ms. Callahan." "But it's the kind of shame we needed." Mira didn't smile, but her heart felt lighter. She wasn't seeking recognition, she simply wanted a world where Finn could grow up without fearing lies. In her first meeting as Director of Internal Audit, she presented a 3-tier audit system, a tightly woven network of oversight, ensuring no transaction could slip through the cracks the way Trinox Solutions once had. She spoke, her voice clear as a bell. "We're not just auditing finances, we're auditing trust." The room was silent, not from doubt, but because they realized Mira was not just another employee. She was a flame, burning bright in the shadow of past mistakes. One board member who had previously supported Vincent stood and nodded. "You have my support." Light from the past. That evening, Mira sat in her new office, a larger space with windows overlooking a city glittering with lights. She opened a drawer and pulled out her sister's letter. The handwriting had faded, but the words still etched clearly in her memory. "Find light in the darkness. And never let anyone take your dignity." Mira touched the necklace, feeling as if her sister were still there, guiding her through the darkest days. Her mind drifted back to when her sister was alive, when they used to sit on the porch, laughing and dreaming about the future. Her sister had encouraged Mira to study biology, then later shift to auditing, saying, "You have eyes that see the truth." When her sister died from illness, Mira felt like the light in her life had vanished. But now, standing in this office, with the evidence that had taken Vincent down and a new future for Finn, Mira knew her sister was right. The light always exists. You just have to be brave enough to find it. She put on the necklace, stood up, and looked out over the city. Helix Core, once a maze of secrets, was now a place she could rebuild, not just for herself, but for anyone who believed in truth. An invitation from Grayson. Grayson Maddox appeared at her office door, his eyes carrying a gentleness Mira hadn't seen before. "You did it, Mira," he said, his voice as soft as an instrumental melody. "But I have another proposal. Take one afternoon off, anywhere you want." Mira was surprised. but she nodded. They drove out to the suburbs, to a small park by the river where sunlight filtered through the trees, casting shimmering patterns across the water. Finn, brought by his daycare teacher, ran laughing across the grass, his voice like music in the air. Grayson and Mira sat on a wooden bench, saying little, but the silence between them carried a peaceful weight. "Do you remember that wrong text?" Grayson asked, pulling out his phone and showing her a screenshot. Mira's message, "Hey, can I borrow $50?" flashed like a relic. "Accidents aren't always accidents," he said, his eyes shining. "I think it was fate." Mira smiled, feeling her heart lift like a bird. "You helped me when I needed it most," she said. "But I don't want to just be someone who was rescued. I want to be myself." Grayson looked at her, his gaze speaking a promise beyond words. "I want you and Finn to be family," he said, softly. "If you're ready." Mira didn't answer right away. She looked at Finn, playing with new friends from daycare, and thought about her journey. From a desperate mother to a leader, from a wrong text to a war for truth. "Ask me again," she said, playfully. "But in person," Grayson laughed. And in that moment, a doorbell rang in Mira's mind, a symbol of the new chances waiting just ahead. Finn and his own world. Finn, now nearly 3 years old, was no longer just Mira's kid. He had his own world in the Helix Core nursery, where the daycare staff shared that Finn had started drawing colorful pictures, sharing toys, and even had his own little schedule of play and learning. Mira looked at him, her heart swelling like a tide. Finn was the reason she had fought, but now, he was also the proof that she had won. One morning, Mira received a letter from a college student who said Mira's story at Helix Core had inspired her to pursue forensic auditing. "You showed me that truth has power," the letter said. Mira read it with tears in her eyes, not from sorrow, but from the realization that her journey had touched someone she'd never met. A legacy of truth. Mira launched an ethics mentorship program at Helix Core, an initiative to train employees on transparency and responsibility. She stood before a group of young hires, sharing her story not to boast, but to remind them that anyone can make a difference. "Truth isn't easy," she said, "but it's worth it." At the year-end meeting, Mira looked around the room, where the eyes that once held skepticism now held trust. She thought of Grayson, now a friend, an ally, maybe something more. She thought of Dana, who had chosen the truth, of Rowan, who had helped turn evidence into a weapon. The story ended in quiet, as Mira and Grayson stood outside her office, watching the city sink into sunset. "You kept your promise," Mira said, her voice light as the wind. Grayson smiled, his eyes holding a new promise. "Now it's time to make new ones." Mira nodded, feeling as if the door to a new world had just opened. She was no longer a lost ship, but a lighthouse, lighting the way for herself and others. Thank you for joining American Stories in this inspiring journey of Mira Callahan, a single mother who stood for truth, for her son Finn, and for her own dignity. Each story we share isn't just words on a screen. It's a small flame that lights up hope and sparks courage in everyone who listens. If you enjoyed this story, follow American Stories to never miss the next emotional journey. Don't forget to turn on notifications for new episodes and share this story with friends, family, anyone who could use a bit of light on a dark day. With just one click, you help spread powerful messages to more hearts. And more than anything, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment. Tell us how Mira's story moved you. Was there a moment that struck you? Do you have a story of courage, of overcoming, or of a wrong message that changed everything? Share it with us, because your story is a piece of the radiant puzzle we're building at American Stories. Let's light up stories together, because as Mira proved, even the smallest light can make darkness back away.